Good morning again, Mr. President, members of the board. We have before you again this month the request to ratify the petitions for the candidates for election commission. I don't see Attorney Martin, so I don't know whether we received the request or not, but I have requested to put it back on the agenda.
Right, we did receive the request to put it back on the agenda. I talked with Mrs. Martin last night at about 10 o'clock, and she informed me that the Attorney General's opinion, she talked with Mr. Phil Carter, I believe is his name, and that he was in the process of meeting with his committee to finalize the opinion, but an opinion has been formed, and that he was in the process of finalizing that opinion, and that we should have that opinion this week. That's the only information that she gave me. She did request that we still hold the item until we get the material from the Attorney General. That's just her request.
Okay. Well, I will have to abide by the wishes of the board attorney and the board.
Well, I'm going to. I can't make this decision unilaterally. I have to ask the board if that's their pleasure to go ahead and to hold this until we get that Attorney General's opinion. In absence of any opposition, then we will hold it.
I just have a quick question.
Mr. Fisher?
Without setting the slate of candidates until now, August, which is our next meeting, how does that affect the process and procedures for ballots and all the other steps and procedures, processes that have to go on for this election? Because it will be 30 days less time now than those who were involved in this process would have originally expected.
Yes, sir. We may want to ask Ms. Dunn, I don't know if she's still here, in terms of make sure that the ballot is done, because the ballot does have to be done, I believe, 90 days before the election.
45.
45 days, sorry. So, also one from the election commission, if holding this in enough additional 2 weeks would cause any problem with the ballot.
No.
Okay.
Or any of the other election processes or procedures?
Okay, thank you very much. We will continue on. We will now go to Mr. Ray Brandt, who is filling in for Mrs. Carmen Davis. Mr. Brandt, good morning.
Good morning. How are you? We have one remains being requested to Gary and our secretary.
Okay, so in other words, with your one unclaimed body, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Okay.
Okay, personnel director, Mrs. Nikki Parker, she doesn't have anything. So we'll call Mr. Darrell McWhorter, Director of Permit and Zoning.
Good morning, Mr. McWhorter.
Good morning, President Graham and Board of Supervisors. We have two items that come before you this morning from the Permit and Zoning Office. The first one is case number U 1708. Mr. Eric Williams requesting rezoning of his property from commercial C3 and residential R2 to agricultural for the purpose of his mobile home. The property consists of 25.9 acres located on the east side of Highway 18 between Highway 27 and Traxler Road in District 2. Planning Commission did hear this case and granted his petition by a vote of 6 yeas, 1 abstained, and 1 member was absent. There was no public opposition.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Second case, South Mississippi Electrical Power Company. They have two provisions in their request, case R1711, and it's actually going to be U1712. This is case number. They requested conditional use permit for dimensional variance in order to construct a 423-foot microwave communication tower with apparatus on agriculturally zoned property. A variance request due to the provisions found in section 2605.4 tower setbacks, 2605.1 co-location requirements with existing towers on other structures, and section 503.02 minimum lot area of property zone agricultural for agriculturally zoned property. This property consists of .39 acres located on the north side of Thornton Road between Cayuga Road and Highway 27 in District 2. Planning Commission did hear the case. Petition did by a vote of 5 yeas, 2 against, and 1 abstain. There was no public opposition on this case, and the representatives for South Mississippi Electrical Power are here if you have any additional questions.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I have a question, Mr. President.
Question for Mr. Stokes.
The power company, who is that representative? Could you have them come forward?
Mr. Warrington.
Quay's coming, Reverend Quay. I think we have a memo from you. Don't we have something similar to this?
Right,
Coming at the next meeting.
They have 2 cases that was presented. One was denied, one was approved.
This one is the one that's approved.
Right.
In terms of this microwave, how close is it going to be to homes, residents, people who might or might not be affected?
I'm Bobby Warrington. I'm with the Campbell DeLong Law Firm. I represent SMEPA in this matter. This is Mr. Richard Ashley, a professional engineer who is South Mississippi's Director of Communications. It's my understanding that there's no residentially zoned property within 1,000 feet of this site. And Mr. Ashley, you can address the safety issues with respect to the microwave.
Yes, sir. The microwave tower is being designed over and above the latest RS-222G standards. We've investigated the site, and there are no houses within 300 feet of this tower, so we feel like it is in a safe zone for location.
Now, some studies say that these microwaves have something to do with cancer.
No, sir. No, sir. These are point-to-point microwave towers. The antenna propagation is from antenna to antenna, so none of the signal will approach the ground. It's strictly like a flashlight beam from one point to another.
There's no danger to human beings or the livestock in the area at all.
No, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Approve.
It's been moved. It's been moved and properly second. Discussion, Ms. Calhoun.
I would like to defer to our zoning director. The gentleman has indicated that there are no residents within 1,000 feet of the location site for the tower. What have you determined?
On the Thornton Road, that is correct. There are no properties. There's no residential properties within 1,000 feet of it.
Okay, and that's within our zoning forms.
All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Okay?
Thank you.
Very much, Mr. McQueen. Anything else?
That is it. Thank you.
Mr. President, now how often do we look at these items? Now, it's approved today. Once they build it, will it come back before you in a certain period of time?
What you have approved is the zoning and the dimensional variances. They still have to come through permit and zoning to actually get a permit to build the structure, and we will monitor that throughout the process. But it does not come back before this board.
Okay, now once it's built, do your office still check and verify things, make sure everything is done properly? And
With the exception of climbing upon that tower.
I got to Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bryant, continue.
Mr. Clarence Williams, Director of Human and Capital Development. You've been to see him.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President, board members. We have 2 items for your approval today. The first one is a request for a board order to accept a grant to Hinds County ELC from the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency in the amount of $14,212 and authorizing the board president to sign the award letter. There is a match amount of $2,003.60. The source of the match will be the 044-260 ELC enhancement funds. The funds may be used to improve the emergency operations center or to enhance their capability to respond to emergencies and disasters in the county. And the interim director, Joey Perkins, is here to answer any specific questions that you may have about that project.
What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
I have a question.
Discussion, Ms. Kaplan?
What department originated that grant, please?
I don't think that there was any department that originated it, if I'm correct. A lot of times these agencies will come directly to the department and offer a grant amount.
It was offered to the EOC, and we did take advantage of it.
Okay. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Continue, please.
The second item is also for the EOC. It's a request for a board order accepting a grant to Hinds County EOC from the State of Mississippi Department of Public Safety, Office of Homeland Security, in the amount of $19,700, and authorizing the board president to sign the award letter and the grant agreement. There is no match. The funds will be used to purchase 2 portable radios and 2 mobile radios.
So moved.
Okay. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second.
Question.
Questions,
Mr.
Mr.
President.
Stokes?
Mr. President, and I don't know who can answer this question, in terms of weather radios, I think Mr. Case kind of asked me, and I didn't know the answer. How many weather radios do we have that should be going, I think, to the public? And what's the status of it? Are they for the public? Just bring us up to speed, please.
Good morning. We do have approximately 300 weather radios that we are in the process of distributing to residents throughout the county. They are available. We'd like to place them in residents, elderly people 65 years or older, and the disabled.
So we're talking about 300.
Yes, sir. Approximately 300.
Are they in yet?
Yes, sir. They are in, and we are installing them every day.
So what's the procedure for citizens to apply for them?
They can request one through our office at the EOC. We will send an employee out to install them and educate them on how to use that radio, and we are keeping track of where we do.
First come, first serve?
Yes, sir, until we go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mrs.
I'm sorry.
Mrs. Do you have something else? Then we'll go to Ms. Calhoun.
Oh, there's something different.
Okay, good, Ms. Calhoun.
Would you explain the difficulties that we've had in distributing those weather radios, please?
You want me to explain the
Well,
difficulty
I've been
we've had?
advised that sometimes when you go out to install one, the resident is not informed.
We have gotten this from our volunteer fire departments and other people throughout the communities. Sometimes when we do go to install those, the residents may not be home, things of that nature, but we do check back with them, and we'll try to get 100% on that.
All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Okay.
Mr. President.
Mr. Stokes.
Should I ask you this question? I'm doing on the grants, and even though it's totally different, it's not concerning grants. Several, I think, weeks ago, you sent letters to all municipalities concerning jail and what did they want to do. Did you get any response back from any of those?
No.
None of them? Zero?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But I would like to brief the board, and we will brief the board on a meeting that we had with the sheriff last week as it relates to some additional information as it relates to the jail and the things that he wants to do and everything. Thank you very much, Ms. Sims.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Continue, Mr. Bryant.
Timothy Lewis, purchasing clerk.
Good morning, Mr. Board President.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Board Supervisors. I have one item before you for your approval. We're asking the board to approve the request to advertise all turn bids items for fiscal year October the 1st, 2012. And please note that it should be September the 30th, 2013. These are for the food, for the detention facilities, and supplies for the central repair, and also for the Department of Public Works. And additionally, we're asking the request to use Electronic Auction Services, Inc. to be approved to facilitate this process.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
So you have A and B here on the agenda. You're combining it into one?
Yes, sir.
And so you're asking that we use select electronic auction services to do the term bid items that you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Question.
From Mr. Stokes.
Thank you. How are we currently doing? What's the process currently?
This is how we're currently doing it.
We advertise with select electronic auction services.
We advertise through our local newspaper, and we also use electronic auction services, which is Frank Jackson, to do our electronic bidding.
Okay, so we still gonna advertise in the newspaper?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then we're gonna do this in addition.
This company is actually going to facilitate the process.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you.
What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Okay, anything else? Mr. Bryant, continue.
Ms. Lily Woods, Budget and Finance Coordinator.
Good morning, President Graham and members of the board.
Morning.
I have one item for your approval this morning. These are the budget amendments. These amendments represent department requests to transfer funds based on the explanations provided with each amendment. We have one amendment that affects the general fund's unappropriated surplus, totaling $15,013.25. This amendment represents the payment for the Sheriff's Department audit fees. This was the interim audit that we had, the transition audit.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Discussion from Mr. Fisher.
This audit should come out of the Sheriff's Department's budget. That's what it was designed to do, is to audit the Sheriff's Department budget. It was done at the Sheriff's request, both when he was the incoming sheriff at a time, I think back in November, when the previous sheriff even asked for it. We got them together to talk about it. But I don't see why this comes out of the unappropriated, out of the surplus of the county. This should come strictly out of the sheriff's budget. This is basically to establish a timeline of accountability for when he took office.
At the time that it was brought by Mr. Lewis or the previous sheriff, it was not designated to come from the sheriff's budget at that particular time.
So what you're saying is that if Public Works wants to buy a piece of equipment but doesn't say we're going to take it out of our budget, it comes out of surplus?
It depends on how the board designates it at that particular time, and the minutes did not reflect that it should come from the sheriff's budget.
Did it reflect it should come out of surplus?
No, it didn't designate how, but it was from the board of supervisors.
At the sheriff's request, at the incoming sheriff's request.
Well, basically, it was made by the Pete Luke at that particular time, and they did do a joint discussion of it. But of course, the current sheriff did pass it on to the county administrator as an expense that he did not have budgeted in his budget, and he assumed that it was coming from the board of supervisors.
I don't agree with that assumption. Did the board of supervisors select the auditor?
No, we did not. You accepted the recommendation of the sheriff.
So basically, what the sheriff is saying here, the current sheriff is saying here, is that I wanted an audit to facilitate a timeline of what and when was occurring when I came into office. He selected the people who were going to do the audit, and then he expects the board of supervisors to pay for it out of the unappropriated funds versus out of his own budget. What a team. This is something all your department heads need to learn. Y'all can save all your budgets.
Question, Mr. President.
Mr. Stokes.
Ms. Woods, when the last quarter of this budget, how does the finances look?
Now, are you asking about the unappropriated surplus that we are going forward with?
No, I'm asking how
the sheriff's?
Not just the sheriff, the whole county as a whole, everybody, how does?
We're in good standing at this particular point in the budget.
Now, if, and we need to have an amendment, if we need to make an amendment to this order that if the sheriff does not spend all of his money, that we could use that fund balance to pay for this, would you feel satisfied that we would do that?
Yes, sir, we can do that.
Okay, so I so move that any excess money out of the sheriff's budget at the end of the budget.
We need to, point of order, we need to amend the original motion. You made the motion and Ms. Calhoun made the second. Ms. Calhoun, is that okay with you to amend the motion to what, or do you want to keep your second, or do you want to?
I can amend the motion. I was under the assumption that the sheriff department was paying.
Okay, before we make a vote, Greta, would you please read the amended motion so we'll all know what we're voting on? Okay.
Can we have Mr. Stokes say it first?
I'd be more than happy to. My amendment is that the fund balance, the money, once we complete the budget for the current year, and the monies that's not spent out of the sheriff's budget would this amount, what is it, 13,000? What's the total?
It's $13.25.
Will be then used to pay this debt.
Okay. It has been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Yes.
You second. You said you didn't want to do you didn't want to withdraw your second.
Well, yeah, withdraw it, but he just made a motion.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay.
That's all, but I'm just making sure that we.
He's made another motion. Do you want to keep your second?
I'm withdrawing, but he also included his motion. I'm withdrawing that second.
You're withdrawing your second. Okay.
But he made a motion rather than say I withdraw. If you said it, that's what it is.
Okay. So what we're going with is a new motion made by Mr. Stokes. Is there a second?
Withdrawing motion, you got a second.
Right.
Starting all over.
We're starting all over. Right. All right. So a motion's been made by Mr. Stokes.
To withdraw.
Motion to withdraw his original motion. All those in favor of? Aye.
Yes.
So that passes. Now that he's withdrawn his original motion, now you can amend it.
I so moved, Mr. President.
So now he's made another motion.
Can I just state that for you before
Yes.
we do this?
Okay.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I think I know what you want,
Yes.
and before you get to the second. Well,
Right.
Okay. This is going to be to resolve to approve the budget amendments representing departmental transfers to transfer between line items with an explanation provided with each amendment in compliance with GASB 34. Additionally, there is one amendment that impacts the general fund unappropriated surplus totaling $15,013.25 to cover the sheriff's department audit fees. However, this amount will be paid out of the sheriff's budget at the end of the fiscal year if that amount is left in their budget.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's been moved by Mr. Stokes. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Supervisor Graham, maybe take all of the other amendments and let that amendment stand by itself.
Yes, we can, but that would be left up to Mr. Stokes since he had made the original amendment. So we'll go
I have
back.
no problem with Mr. President.
Okay.
So scratching that one too.
Yeah.
Okay, since there's not a second and it's not been accepted as a motion, then your original motion would be?
Mr. President.
I think we have it just making it as an original motion that what Greta said. So you've made the motion. I will now again ask, is there a second?
Just approve the amendment. But you're going to still have to
Just a point of clarification.
Yeah, it's a point of
What we can do here
information.
is we can remove the objectionable part of this, vote on everything but that, and then vote on the objectionable part separate.
Now, the only question is this. If the problem is that we thought that the sheriff was going to pay for it out of his budget, and we don't know how much money is going to be left in this budget at the end of the year, we can only say that if the money is left, that will be paid out of his budget. And at least we can, it's like similar to your inter-fund transfer, then we put the money back.
At the end of the year, Mr. Supervisor
That's all right.
stuff. If any department does not, has any money that is automatically returned to the general fund.
Right.
Okay. Let me
So
ask,
even if he didn't have any and somebody else had, it's all come back into the general fund anyway, so the county's good.
let me just ask you, your question, Ms. Woods. Is this dated? In other words, can we hold this? Does it have to be done today?
We don't have to do that particular.
Because I'd like to make sure that everybody is clear on this particular motion as to who's going to pay for it, because I'm pretty sure the sheriff thought we were going to pay for it. Mr. Fisher has merit, Mr. Stokes has merit, Ms. Calhoun has merit, and I think we want to make sure that we all want to do this correctly. So without objection, we can hold this until the next board meeting to make sure we have an opportunity to talk with the sheriff, to make sure we have an opportunity to look at the budget, to make sure everyone knows what was said on that particular meeting, because there was some there were several statements that were made as to who was going to do what. So if we hold this until the next meeting, then I think we'll be clear, if that's clear with Mr. Stokes. And
That's fine, Mr. President.
Okay, so we will hold this and until the next meeting, and then it'll give you an opportunity to give more clarification as well. Mr. Fisher.
Where is this all?
I just need big
Regular
part.
budget amendments.
We just need to go
Correct.
ahead and approve the regular budget amendments and leave that one amendment out.
Okay.
So moved.
And okay, it's been moved, and I will second it. And Mr. Fisher has a question regarding.
Well, this concerns the budget. This concerns the audit that the sheriff is doing, so it's really not really relevant to this motion. So let's just hold off on my question until after we pass the motion, which is a motion, as I understand it, that passes the budget amendment minus the issue with the sheriff's department.
Right. All in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
And my question is, where is the audit?
My understanding from the auditors performing this is that they have presented to the sheriff the items that the sheriff would like for them to look at. And so it's with the sheriff's office to determine where they move from there.
Okay. Thank you very much. We will.
Let me ask you this, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Just to follow up on Mr. Fisher's question. When the board pays for audits, any information studies and everything else, even though the elected officials in copies, can we not receive for our offices also, and maybe the chancellor clerk for their records, so we can all be able to look at it and read it and have a copy of it?
We will have a copy, but my understanding is that they are not complete at this time, that they only identified several items that the sheriff wanted them to review. And they're at the point of telling the sheriff how much additional time is needed for them to give feedback.
But we will get copies. Okay. All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Question.
Sorry.
They only identified, they only conducted, the company only conducted an audit on 5 selected items that were identified by the sheriff.
No, they did an assessment to identify items to present to the sheriff to say these are things that would you like for me to look at these particular items. The sheriff then identified some particular items he would like for them to review. So if they're at the point now,
An audit would include all aspects of the sheriff's budget.
this really was supposed to be an interim assessment to say this is where the old sheriff left off and this is where the new sheriff is picking up. And if you look at the contract that we have, it says that you will be given certain items to look at by the sheriff. But he was working on things to give the sheriff to say which items should I look at? Should I look at? And the sheriff has identified a group of items. But in the meantime, his assessment of meeting with people and going through what should happen has created this cause.
If the service has not been completely rendered, why present an invoice to this board?
Well, he submitted 2 invoices, which, we've already covered those invoices. It's a matter of whose budget to charge it to is where we are with the amendment.
But I thought you just said that the audit was not complete.
Well, he does have to give a completed report to the sheriff.
Okay, then I suggest at that time, that invoice?
You know, they auditors do, I guess, bill us an interim when they complete interim parts of the work.
Okay.
That's what he's done.
Okay, thank you very much. We will continue with our printed agenda. Mr. Bryant.
There's no emergency purchases, minute insertion, and as listed, no action required.
Okay, we will now go to Ms. Crystal Martin. Are you going to bring any items for Ms. Crystal?
I'm standing in for Crystal.
Okay.
Morning, Chairman, other supervisors. Cherie Prince standing in for Ms. Crystal Martin, Board Attorney. We have one contract for your consideration this morning, and it's with Ms. Nikisha McQuitter Watkins for youth court. Is Ms. McQuitter here? This contract is to perform certain legal services within youth court, and it's for consideration for the board this morning.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly second. Questions for Mr. Fisher?
Is this something that we've done in the past, these services she's presented?
Yes.
It is.
Yes. Okay, good deal.
All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
There are no resolutions for the board this morning. Moving on to number 3, there's been a recommendation from the Hinds County Economic Development Authority to give an abatement in the amount of 23.84 meals to Lockheed Martin Services. And I believe there's a representative here today from the Hinds County Economic Development Authority.
Right, Mr. Wallace is here. Okay.
Would you like to?
Question?
Do you have a question regarding this?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Wallace, would you come to the front and assist, please? Okay.
Okay, the abatement is for 23 meals?
23.84, I believe.
Yes.
Meals.
Mills.
Okay, where they gonna locate?
They're already in the South Point Center in Clinton.
So that would total to,
Our total millage for the county is 38.33, and we do not abate our total millage. So that's 23.84 meals of the general fund.
okay, so we still gonna get some,
Yes,
just not all of it.
that's right. We
Some
run
better than none.
we run the numbers. You know, you and I discussed revenue.
How many employees?
They are currently around 110, 120, but they're headed to 350. And then if they acquire other contracts, they may exceed that 350 employment as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Okay.
Mr. Fisher?
Move for approval.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Moving on to number 4, I think we've already discussed that we're going to wait on a legal opinion for acceptance of petitions for candidates for the Office of Election Commission. I'm sorry. I was thinking about the City of Jackson. At this time, on number 4, we have not received the AG's opinion, and it is the request of the board attorney to remove this item from the agenda at this point in time until we actually receive that opinion.
Okay, that's fine. We've already acted on that one. Okay.
And the minute insertions are as written.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll